My father-in-law and I both married into the wealthy Thompson family. He and my mother-in-law were childhood sweethearts, their love story the stuff of legends. But one day, he grabbed my hand, tears streaming down his face, and confessed, "Mike, your mother-in-law, Catherine, she's been seeing a younger man on the side. They even have a child together. I've been kept in the dark for over a decade, made a complete fool of." A lump formed in my throat. "Dad, actually, Rose has someone too. She bought the guy an entire apartment building." We clung to each other, sobbing. After a long while, my father-in-law sniffled and declared, "You can trust a woman about as much as you can trust a pig to fly." "Mike, I'm done with that old broad," he declared. "Dad, I'm with you. I'm done with that cheating wife of mine too." My father-in-law and I were in perfect agreement, and we immediately began plotting our escape. After considering all our options, faking our deaths seemed like the most brilliant plan. My father-in-law, John, came from a good family himself, but he'd been with Catherine since they were kids. He married into the Thompson family at 20 and had been a devoted stay-at-home husband ever since. He was hopelessly naive, but he could definitely act the part. "Mike, this is everything I have access to," he said, handing me a portfolio. "How do we get started?" I looked at the documents he gave me, and my eyes nearly popped out of my head. $2 billion? John truly was one of Fortune's favorites. Compared to him, my own stash of 30 million seemed pathetic. Still, it was more than enough for us to live comfortably for the rest of our lives, and then some. "Dad," I said, "I have a plan." John agreed to follow my lead, so I set things in motion. My mother-in-law's birthday was in 2 days, and we decided to host the party on a yacht. It was a novel idea, and more importantly, it provided the perfect opportunity for our escape. With time being so short, we outsourced all the party planning. As for the catalyst for our deaths, it would naturally be Rose's boy toy. If he had the nerve to accept an entire building from her, he had to be prepared to face the consequences. On the day of the party, John was dressed in a sharp Versace suit, his mature, composed face betraying nothing. My mother-in-law, Catherine, stood beside him. Though older, she was still impeccably maintained, drawing the admiring glances of many wealthy bachelors. Guests milled about, and she flashed a smile, nodding at me from across the crowd. We shared a silent, knowing glance. Just then my wife, Rose, came to my side and looped her arm through mine. "Mike, you look so handsome tonight." The warmth of her hand on my arm sent a shiver through me, and I instinctively pulled away slightly. "You look beautiful tonight, too," I said. "You're attracting so many admirers. I feel like I've been shot down by their stares 1,000 times." A number of handsome young men were indeed staring at Rose. She leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "They can look, but they can't touch. I belong only to you." I fought back a wave of disgust and met the eyes of a man standing a short distance away, a smirk playing on my lips. "What a shame. Someone's going to be heartbroken." "Rose, that building is worth a fortune," I said, my voice low. "It seems Mr. Vance holds a very special place in your heart." Rose froze, her hand dropping from my arm. "Don't misunderstand," she said stiffly. "It's all for business." "Oh, I understand," I replied, my tone dripping with sarcasm. "Spending millions for love, right?" Rose opened her mouth to explain further, but I just patted her arm. "I'm going to go check on my father-in-law. You enjoy yourself." Leo Vance walked over and began talking to her, and I used the opportunity to make my way toward John. When I reached him, he pulled me aside, out onto the deck. "Mike, are you ready?" "Yeah, I'm ready." "Don't worry," I assured him. We shared a conspiratorial smile, just as Leo Vance approached us. "Mike, Mr. Davis, you're here too." John's face hardened. "Mr. Vance, you sweet-talked my daughter into buying you a building, and now you have the audacity to show your face to me?" Leo's expression soured. "Mr. Davis, I didn't do anything. Rose wanted to do it." Crack. John couldn't contain his anger any longer and slapped him hard across the face. Leo stood there, stunned. I sneered. "Always calling her Rose this and Rose that. Who do you think you are?" I said. "My father-in-law only has one daughter. You're no brother of hers." "Leo, do your fans on social media know how shameless you were behind scenes?" Leo was furious and, clutching his cheek, lunged at me. John and I grappled with him, and in the ensuing struggle, I stumbled backward, tumbling over the railing and into the dark water below. "Mike!" John screamed, leaning over the side and reaching for me, but he grabbed nothing but air. Leo was terrified. "No, it wasn't me. If it wasn't you, who was it? You give me back my son-in-law." John grabbed him and started dragging him toward the railing. Terrified, Leo gave him a violent shove. A piercing scream echoed from behind them. "Dad!" Everyone on the yacht panicked, searching the waters frantically. Not far away, I was pulled onto a small rescue boat. John was beside me, his voice trembling in my ear. "Mike, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Dad," he replied. Wrapped in a blanket, I watched the chaotic scene on the yacht fade into the distance. I finally let out a sigh of relief. Later, once we were safely ashore, we sat on a sofa watching the news. A massive headline made both of us frown. Hashtag tragedy at Thompson CEO's birthday gala. Father and son-in-law plunge into ocean. Presumed lost hashtag on the screen. Leo Vance's face was pale, his eyes bloodshot as he sobbed to reporters. "It wasn't my fault. I didn't push them. They fell on their own." Leo was led away by the police. Rose and Catherine stood by with grim expressions, Rose in particular looking utterly devastated. I scoffed at the screen and turned off the television. John patted my hand. "Don't worry, it's all an act. With us dead, they're probably thrilled. You just watch. Leo will be out in less than 2 days," he predicted. "And that's when Catherine's lover will finally make his appearance." I nodded in agreement. Just as John had predicted, Leo was released 3 days later. A swarm of reporters was there to greet him. Citing a lack of evidence, the police let him go, and Rose herself was there to pick him up. The reporters surrounded them, a forest of microphones and cameras pointed in their faces. "MS. Thompson, rumors say Leo Vance was arguing with the 2 men before the incident. Was the argument related to their fall?" Another shouted. "Does this mean you've forgiven him? What's the latest on the search? Has the Thompson family called off the recovery efforts?" Rose's face was a dark mask. "Please refer to the official statements," she said. Watching the video, I sneered. "Damn you, Rose. That man is clearly the love of your life. You can't even bring yourself to blame him. You're actually protecting him." Furious, I closed the video and decided then and there to take John on a trip around the world. Having money really changes things. For security, we opened an offshore bank account that no one could trace. Our days were filled with fine dining, parties, and absolute freedom. We were having the time of our lives. The strange thing was, the Thompson family refused to declare U.S. dead without bodies. This led to rampant speculation in the media about whether we were truly gone. The rumors flew, but I remained completely unfazed. Soaking up the sun, watching the beautiful women on the beach, life couldn't be better. After about 6 months of this, however, I started to get a little bored. So, John and I returned to the States and opened a small inn in the Florida Keys. We spent our days checking in guests and collecting payments, and life was simple and satisfying. The news stories about us eventually faded from the papers and television. I figured we'd just live out our days like this, and John felt the same. We had become like a real father and son, occasionally hitting the local bars to check out the scene and meet new people. John was surprisingly open-minded, and we'd sit there rating the women who walked by. But our peaceful existence came to a sudden, screeching halt. It was peak tourist season, and business at the inn was booming. I booked a huge reservation. A couple wanted to rent out the entire property for a month. They offered an extra $20,000 on the condition that no other guests would be allowed, an offer I happily accepted. When I learned it was just 2 people, I promised them our best standalone villa would be all theirs. I even stocked the villa with plenty of groceries and snacks. They sounded like a young couple in love, and I was determined to give them the best possible service. John was thrilled when he heard the news. Before a guest arrived, he dragged me out for a fantasy warrior photo shoot. "Life is meant to be enjoyed, Mike," he said, looking at the pictures. "Look at you, you look amazing. In a few days, I'm going to set you up on some dates," he continued. "You're still young. You can't waste your life pining for a lost cause like Rose." His words warmed my heart. I knew he was right. "Dad, I know," I said. "Rose was just a chapter in my life. If I meet the right person, I won't say no." I then added with a grin, "Speaking of which, I've seen Mrs. Gable from next door coming over quite a bit. Are you thinking about starting a new chapter yourself?" He looked away, a little embarrassed. "Mrs. Gable is attractive enough, I suppose, but she's no Catherine." My heart skipped a beat. "Dad, you can't possibly still be thinking about my ex-mother-in-law, can you? Please," he scoffed, rolling his eyes in disgust. "Ever since I found out what a rotten person she is, I haven't wanted anything to do with her. But, we were childhood sweethearts. We were together for so long. It's just hard to imagine anyone else right now." Then his tone shifted completely. "Although, some of the younger women I've seen around here are quite lovely. Maybe I could give that a try." Hearing him say that, my eyes lit up. It seems it's true what they say. Men will be boys. No matter how old they get, they'll always have a thing for younger women. This I could work with. I snapped my fingers. I heard that bar down the road has a lot of new talent. All different types. Some even do cosplay. Want to go check it out tonight? John and I were on the same page. We decided to go that very evening. After the photo shoot, the makeup artist snapped a couple of pictures of me with her phone. You're the most convincing warrior I've ever worked on, she gushed. Can I post this on my TikTok? Sure, I said quickly, but only a side profile. Don't show my face. No problem. She posted the photo of my side profile to her TikTok as an advertisement for her work, and I didn't think anything of it. That night, John and I changed clothes and headed straight for the bar. Even though John was pushing 50, he had lived a life of leisure and didn't look his age at all. Under the dim lights of the club, we sat on a plush sofa as the manager expertly paraded a line of models for our selection. I pulled out 2 thick wads of cash and tossed them on the table. Bring us your best, I said. Don't waste our time with the B team. The manager scrambled to bring a few new arrivals to the front of the line. I clicked my tongue. Is that all? I heard you had 2 new headliners, I said. John casually adjusted the diamond watch on his wrist, and the manager's eyes lit up. Rest assured, gentlemen, they'll be right out. I nodded, but after waiting for what felt like an eternity, I sighed. Looks like this place is overrated. The quality is inconsistent. Just as I said that, 2 women walked in. Their silhouettes seemed familiar, and though they wore masks, their figures were undeniably stunning. They wore simple, low-cut dresses, yet they carried themselves with an air of elegance that made my eyes widen. I sat up straighter. Mr. Hayes, the manager purred. These are our crown jewels. I waved him away, and the manager discreetly vanished. The 2 women entered and looked at John and me, the corners of their mouths curling into smiles. I suddenly felt a chill run down my spine. Something was very wrong. My heart skipped a beat. Dad, I whispered, doesn't something seem off about them? They have great figures, he replied. But Mike, I can't shake the feeling that they look familiar. One of the women stepped forward and pulled me into an embrace. The familiar scent of cedar sent a jolt through me. Mike Hayes, are you satisfied with what you see? The familiar voice made my head spin. My world shattered. With a trembling hand, I reached up and removed her mask. A pair of stunning, almond-shaped eyes stared back at me, and the room began to spin. Well, Mike Hayes, Rose said, bringing my father all the way out here to party. Have you had your fun yet? On the other side, Catherine had also removed her mask. She glared at a smug-looking John, her expression thunderous. John Davis, you have some explaining to do. At that, John's eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed in a dramatic faint. I want to faint too, but a second later Rose grabbed my wrist, cupped the back of my head, and kissed me hard. I shoved her away, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand, my face a storm of anger. Don't touch me, I snarled. Isn't Leo keeping you company? What are you doing here, playing the role of the loving wife? Who are you trying to fool? Rose just looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. There is no Leo. Don't lie to me. I saw the news reports. The reporters saw everything. How long do you plan on keeping up this charade? At this, she actually laughed. What's this? Are you jealous? Jealous my ass. Get away from me. Nearby, Catherine pulled the still fainting John to his feet. Rose, handle you, man. We'll deal with our own business. With that, she supported John and walked briskly out of the bar. I tried to follow them, but Rose blocked my path. She slung an arm around my shoulders and forcibly steered me out of the bar. The owner started to approach us, but one icy glare from her sent him retreating. Rose dragged me all the way back to the inn. I struggled against her grip. The guests are here. Let me go. I hissed. I'm the guest, she said calmly. I made the reservation. The words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I never would have guessed it was her. I should have known. Who else would be so extravagant as to book out the entire place for a month? Rose led me into the villa and stood there, hands on her hips. I had to admit, she was a beautiful woman. Her curvaceous figure was enough to make a man's head spin. I'd spent the last few months surrounded by beautiful women and thought I'd become immune. But looking at Rose, I couldn't tear my eyes away. What do you want? I stammered. I should be asking you that question, she shot back. Faking your death, and not only that, you dragged my father into your ridiculous scheme. Mike Hayes, you got a lot of nerve. I let out a cold laugh. You're the one who forced me to do it. You bought Leo Vance a building. What right does a cheating wife have to question me? I stood up to leave, but she shoved me back onto the bed, pinning my wrists above my head. Mike, nothing happened, she insisted. Leo and I, it's not what you think. Stop lying to me. You knew he was the reason I went into the water, and you still bailed him out. You said it was nothing. You're a heartless user. I kicked her shin, and she grunted in pain. I used the moment to shove her off me and stormed out of the room, only to be blocked by a bodyguard at the door. Sir, Miss Thompson has instructed that you are not to leave the villa, he said. I turned and shot a furious glare back at Rose, who had followed me out. You're not going anywhere, she said. If you even think about leaving, I'll make sure your family regrets it. I hadn't even told my own family where I was. I hadn't dared to contact them. Now Rose was using them to threaten me. I clenched my fists. You don't have to look at me like that, she said coolly. All I know is that for what you and my father did, there will be consequences. Rose, you wouldn't dare. I'll kill you. I raged, but my threats were empty, and she was completely unmoved. Rose simply crooked a finger at me. Come on, let's talk. I took a deep breath. Fine, let's talk. I'm not afraid of you. I just hope John was okay. I glanced toward the other room upstairs, from which I could hear raised voices. Rose covered my eyes with her hand. Don't worry about them. My mother would never truly hurt my father. I slapped her hand away, my face contorted in a sneer. You and your mother are two peas in a pod. The older one has a lover and an illegitimate child on the side, and the younger one keeps a boy toy and buys him a building. I leaned in closer. Rose, don't you get it? Your position isn't secure. Your mother's other child is going to come back and fight you for the inheritance. Rose stared at me, a look of pure confusion on her face. An illegitimate child fighting for the inheritance? She repeated. Mike, have you been reading too many soap opera scripts? Why has my father been teaching you all this time? And you're supposed to be an Ivy League graduate. I shot her a dirty look. This is all because of what you and your mother did. How dare you blame me? Mike, you seriously need to get your head examined, she said, exasperated. My mother does not have an illegitimate child, and my relationship with Leo is not what you think it is. Like hell I believed her. Right, of course not. Keep denying it, even though the reporters could see what was going on. I'll ask you this. Why did you bail him out when you knew he was responsible for what happened to me and my father-in-law? I demanded. And that apartment building, did you or did you not buy it for him? Answer me, yes or no. Rose sighed, looking defeated. Yes. Then that settles it, I said. I threw my hands up in the air. Since that's the case, let's just get a divorce. A divorce? Are you serious? She asked, her voice quiet. Of course I'm serious. I don't want to be with you anymore. I told you when we got married, I was fine with marrying into your family, but I needed a wife who was committed to me, not one who was fooling around on the side. There's no room for a third person in our marriage. Rose looked at me with a strange expression. Leo is just a new actor signed to my production company. I put him in projects to make money for the company. He has the right to use that apartment, but he doesn't own it. She paused. In fact, the property is registered in your name. I was stunned into silence. Afraid I wouldn't believe her, Rose pulled out her phone and showed me the documents. The building was purchased in your name. I told Leo he could live there for as long as he needed to for work. Do you understand? No, I don't understand. All I know is that you doted on him in public, and you let everyone think he was your new man. Let's just get a divorce and go our separate ways. Then you can be with whoever you want, and it will have nothing to do with me. Just as I finished speaking, a roar erupted from the next room. It was John. Stop lying to me, he bellowed. That man practically paraded his child in front of me. Catherine, we've been together since we were kids. We supported each other through everything. And this is how you repay me? The kid is 16 years old. How long were you planning on lying to me? With a loud bang, the door flew open and John stormed out. Seeing me, his eyes filled with tears, and he grabbed my hand. Let's go, Mike. Ignore them, he said. We have to kick them out. I hesitated. But Dad, they're the guests who booked the inn for a month. What? John was stunned. He couldn't believe it was them. What rotten luck, he exclaimed. Pay them whatever it takes to make them leave, he insisted. Just then, Catherine emerged from the room. We don't want your money, John. Just listen to my explanation. I'm not listening. We're getting a divorce. Mike, call the lawyers. If they won't agree to our terms, we'll sue. John and I exchanged a look. We were both ready for this. We had to see this through to the end. Hearing his words, Catherine clutched her chest, her face turning pale. John, you don't believe me? I'm with you constantly. When would I have had time to have a child? She swayed on her feet, but John was unmoved. Stop pretending, he sneered. I'm telling you. Before he could finish his sentence, Catherine collapsed to the floor with a soft thud. John immediately panicked. Catherine, wake up, he yelled. Rose, you useless girl, what are you standing there for? Your mother fainted. Call an ambulance, quick. Rose, now frantic herself, rushed to her mother's side. They took her to the hospital, and I followed along. John paced anxiously in the waiting room. Watching him, I couldn't help but say, Dad, it seems you do still care about her. Who says? He retorted. I'm just worried that if she dies here, it'll be bad for business. He had a point. I nodded in agreement. If she died at our inn, we'd be ruined. Seeing his stubborn expression, I couldn't help but sigh. Rose, who was standing nearby, said in a low voice, I don't know where you two get your information, but you're spreading baseless rumors and trying to slander my mother. Stop trying to cover for her. John shot back. The man's name is Miller, and his son is 16 years old. He's the spitting image of your mother. You ungrateful child. I can't believe you're my daughter, taking your mother's side like this. John glared at her. Rose was about to reply when Catherine stirred in the hospital bed. She reached out and weakly grasped John's hand. "John," she whispered, "don't leave me." John looked annoyed, but the doctor interjected. "The patient can't handle any stress right now. Any strong emotional fluctuations could cause a cerebral hemorrhage," he warned. "It would be best if a family member stayed with her." Hearing this, John had no choice but to stay, though he did so grudgingly. He turned to me and said, "Mike, you go get some rest. Dad, I'll be in the waiting room. Call me if you need anything." I couldn't leave John there by himself, so I went to the waiting area, where only Rose and I were present. She was about to say something when her phone rang. She impatiently declined the call, but not before I clearly saw the name Leo on the screen. "Go on, answer it," I taunted. "You wouldn't want him to be sad." Rose hesitated, but the phone kept ringing. Finally, she answered it, and her face immediately went pale. "What did you say?" she exclaimed. I scoffed. "What an actress." I shook my head without a word and walked over to the window, staring out at the distant, flickering city lights under the dark sky. I could hear muffled voices from the next room. It sounded like Catherine was trying to explain something to John. I had no idea if they would reconcile, but I knew that for Rose and me, it was over. "Mike, wait here for me," Rose said urgently. "Something's come up. I'll be right back." With that, she rushed out, leaving her bodyguard behind. I let out a cold laugh, my heart sinking. I opened my phone to find a new iMessage. It was from Leo. "Mr. Hayes, Miss Thompson and I are not what you think. Please don't misunderstand the situation." Reading his two-faced message, a sudden thought struck me. How did he know I was alive? And how did he get my new number? Just then, a low male voice drifted in from the hallway. "John, please don't be angry with me. I know you're upset, but I truly didn't mean for this to happen. He's a Thompson, too. Tyler, get on your knees and apologize to the lady." There was a soft thud, followed by John's furious voice. "Who are you calling lady, you bastard?" I rushed out into the hall to see a mild-mannered man and a teenage boy kneeling in front of John, whose eyes were red with rage. I immediately shoved the man aside. "Are you insane? Coming here to stake your claim?" I pointed at the bodyguard. "Get them out of here." The boy behind the man stepped forward defiantly. "What are you doing? Don't you dare touch my dad. Your dad started this by upsetting my father-in-law." I retorted. We squared off like two fighting roosters. The man, Chris, looked uncomfortable. "I just came to see how she was doing. I didn't mean any harm. You're upsetting my father-in-law and my mother-in-law. Please leave right now." Seeing my furious expression, the two of them stepped aside, but they didn't leave, merely lingering by the doorway. Just then, Catherine's voice came from inside the room. "Let them in." I was furious at her words, but John just calmly patted my hand and went back to looking at his phone, texting someone. After Chris went inside, we couldn't hear what was said, but soon the sound of crying emerged from the room. John and I exchanged a bewildered look. John snorted. "So dramatic." I nodded in agreement, then a thought occurred to me. "Oh, by the way, Dad, I think Leo knows I'm alive. He just sent me an iMessage." I handed him my phone. John stared at the screen, stunned. He was about to say something when the door opened again. "John," Catherine said. "You and Mike, please come in." John and I entered the room. Catherine was propped up in bed. "Let me introduce you," she began. "This is Chris Miller." "I know who he is," John interrupted. "No need for introductions. He's your illegitimate son, isn't he?" "You've misunderstood," Chris said quietly. "The boy is a Thompson, but he's not Catherine's son. He's Rebecca's." "What did you say?" John exclaimed. "But she died years ago." A look of realization dawned on John's face. "She left behind a child," Catherine explained. Chris gave a sad smile. "I've been raising him out in the country all this time, but we've fallen on hard times. I had no choice but to seek out the Thompson family. He's a brilliant student, but being with me is holding him back." Chris pleaded. "I know this is a misunderstanding, but I'm desperate. John, I'm begging you, please take Tyler in." "Dad, I'll eat dirt with you if I have to. I'm not going anywhere," Tyler said stubbornly. It was only then that I noticed the boy was still in his school uniform. I couldn't believe he was Rose's cousin. Why hadn't Catherine explained this earlier? Catherine sighed. "I had only met with Chris twice. I had just transferred him $100,000 when your father-in-law found out and refused to let it go," she explained. "I was planning to explain everything at the birthday party, but I never got the chance. Then, after he found you, he still wouldn't listen to me. So I decided to bring them here to explain it to you in person. Here is the paternity test," she said, holding out a document. "Rebecca had it done before she passed away. So that was it." John had thought Chris was Catherine's secret lover. This was a disaster. I stood there stunned. Catherine looked at me. "Mike, please take them outside for a moment." "John, you stay. I need to speak with you." John's expression was unreadable. I patted his shoulder. Just say what's on your mind. I've got your back, I told him. He nodded, and I led Chris and Tyler out of the room. Once we were in the hallway, I felt a pang of embarrassment. I'm really sorry about that. It was all a big misunderstanding. It's all right, Chris said. I should have been clearer. Tyler looks so much like his mother. It's no wonder John jumped to conclusions. But what's going on with you and Rose? He asked. She doesn't seem like the type to be unfaithful. Just thinking about Rose made me angry. She still wasn't back. Let me get you two settled in a hotel for the night, I said. It's getting late. We can sort everything out tomorrow. Chris nodded, and I drove them to a nearby hotel and helped them check in. After that, I called Rose's phone. To my shock, it was Leo who answered. Where is Rose? I demanded. Mr. Hayes, he said smoothly. Ms. Thompson is in the shower right now. Perhaps you could call back later? Then he hung up. I clenched my fist so hard my knuckles turned white. Damn him. How dare he lie to me? I was so furious I could barely see straight. I wanted to find her and demand an explanation right then and there. But why should I let her lead me around by the nose? I called over the bodyguard she'd left behind. Find Rose, I ordered. If you can't find her, you're all fired. The bodyguard, not daring to question me, left immediately. Next, I contacted my lawyer. I told him to verify if the apartment building in Miami was legally in my name. If it was, he was to immediately inform Leo Vance that he was to vacate the premises. Why should another man be living in my property? The lawyer was fast. He quickly confirmed that the property was indeed in my name. That settled it. It was time for Leo to pack his bags. My actions apparently had the desired effect, because my phone rang almost immediately. It was Leo. Mike Hayes, what the hell is this? He screamed into the phone. Are you trying to ruin me? Isn't this what you wanted? I replied calmly. You tried to steal my wife. You should have been prepared for the consequences. I'm giving you 24 hours to get out of my building. With that, I hung up and blocked his number. Now, he was the one who should be panicking. I, on the other hand, was perfectly calm. An hour later, the bodyguard returned with Rose. Her face was flushed, and she clung to me, murmuring, Mike, I only want Mike. The bodyguard explained, Sir, Ms. Thompson was drugged. When we found her, Leo Vance was taking her clothes off and trying to take pictures. Hearing this, I exploded with rage. Where is he? I roared. We brought him, sir. With a thud, Leo was forced to his knees in front of me. His hair was disheveled, and there was a fresh handprint on his cheek. He looked pathetic. He gritted his teeth. I almost had her, he spat. You're a lucky man, Mike Hayes. Even drugged out of her mind, she was still calling for you. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. Who the hell do you think you are, messing with my wife? I turned to the bodyguard. Make sure he's out of that building by tomorrow. And I want him blacklisted. Everywhere. The bodyguard nodded and dragged Leo away. I carried Rose back into the hospital, where a doctor examined her and started in 4. He said she would be fine once the drugs wore off. I was about to leave when Rose grabbed my hand. Mike, don't go, she murmured half asleep. It's all my fault. Please don't leave me. Even in her drowsy state, she was apologizing. Looking at her flushed face, I sighed and patted her hand. I'm not going anywhere, I said softly. I'm not going. She gripped my hand tightly. I stayed by her side until the early hours of the morning, when I finally drifted off to sleep in the chair. In my sleep, I felt a chill and instinctively moved closer to a source of warmth. When I woke up, I heard a woman's soft laughter above me. Mike, Rose said, I knew you couldn't bear to leave me. I realized I had ended up in the bed with her. Blushing, I tried to pull away, but she held me tight. Honey, I know you still care about me, she whispered. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come for me. You're so good to me. I took a deep breath, exasperated. How did Leo manage to drug you? You must have given him the opportunity. I swear, honey, she said earnestly, Leo called me. He said he had pictures of you and demanded $20 million. I had no choice but to meet him. I never thought he'd pull something like that. Rose kissed my forehead. Thank goodness for you, my hero. Her voice turned hard. As for Leo, I'm not going to let him get away with this. Hearing this, I couldn't resist a sarcastic jab. What happened to him making money for you? Is this a case of love turning to hate? I never loved him, she said dismissively. He used to be involved with Regina from Apex Tech. I only tolerated him out of respect for her. Now that he's tried to cross me, he expects me to show him mercy? Not a chance. Good, I said, because I already had him thrown out of the apartment. Rose hugged me tighter. Good job, honey. I patted her cheek. Okay, let go of me. People will see. I then added, by the way, it turns out Tyler is your Aunt Rebecca's son. Rose was taken aback for a moment, then it clicked. Tyler? Chris Miller's son? So that's what it was. I knew my mother would never do something like that. Her voice grew serious. Mike, you can never scare me like that again. You have no idea. My mother and I, we almost didn't make it. I didn't say anything. She just held me, burying her face in my chest. I sighed and wrapped my arms around her, accepting my fate. After Rose recovered, John and Catherine also made up. We all went back to Miami together, bringing Chris and Tyler with us. A crowd of reporters had somehow gotten wind of our return and were waiting for us. I looked at the swarm of people outside and whispered to Rose, "How did Leo know where I was? And how did you find me? Honey, that fantasy warrior photo of you went viral on TikTok. Everyone saw it," she explained. "Leo got there before I did. He was taking pictures of you, so of course he knew where you were. So that's what happened." The makeup artist post had blown up, and I hadn't even noticed. Rose had seen it and tracked me down. But now, faced with a sea of reporters, I had no idea what to do. Rose took my hand, and Catherine stood protectively by John's side. The official story they gave the press was that John and I had miraculously survived and had spent the last 6 months recovering abroad. When my fantasy warrior photo surfaced online, people on Twitter figured out I'd been running an inn in the Florida Keys. Recuperating? More like a vacation. "I bet there was a marriage crisis," one comment read. "What happened to Leo Vance? I heard he got kicked out." "Looks like the original husband won after all," said another. Fun fact, Leo Vance was the toy boy of Regina at Apex Tech. The Thompson Corporation acquired Apex, so Leo lost his value and got kicked to the curb. Another user posted, "Imagined corporate warfare, epic stock market battles. Real corporate warfare. The son-in-law and father-in-law jump off a yacht." Reading these comments, I felt a little embarrassed. The whole affair had certainly caused a stir for the Thompson family. But Catherine and Rose were ruthless in their damage control, and soon, all the rumors vanished from the internet. John and I were having tea in the garden when he handed me a credit card. "Dad, what's this?" I asked. "I didn't spend it all, so it's yours." "I'll just ask her for more later," he said with a wink. "Your mother-in-law was so upset. If I don't spend her money, she thinks I'm planning to run away again." Their public displays of affection were a bit much, but I took the card anyway. "Mike," John said, leaning in conspiratorially, "a woman needs to have a little sense of insecurity to keep a man on his toes. Shall we go check out that bar tonight?" I was taken aback for a second, but then he winked at me, and I burst out laughing. "All right," I said. "No problem." I gave him a thumbs up. The plan was set. That evening, John convinced Catherine to attend a charity gala. I sent Rose along with her, telling her to keep a close eye on her mother and ward off any unwanted suitors. Meanwhile, John and I snuck out to the club. I had to admit, the bars in Miami were on a whole other level compared to the ones in the Keys, both in terms of quality and quantity. I watched the dancers on stage, their bodies moving sensuously to the music. The air was thick with energy. One of them even came over and invited me to touch her slender waist. My face flushed red, but John just laughed heartily beside me. "Don't be shy. It's a waste not to look. We paid good money to be here." I tentatively reached out my hand, only for another hand to appear out of nowhere and grab my wrist. "Honey," a familiar voice said. I froze. A second later, John was being pulled into a fierce embrace by Catherine. "What's the matter?" Catherine purred at her husband. "Couldn't get enough of a show at home, so you had to come here?" "Now listen, let me explain," John stammered. I squinted at Rose, confused. "Weren't you supposed to be at a gala?" "We were," she said, her eyes twinkling. "But then I happened to see a certain someone's location pop up on my iMessage, and I just knew you two had snuck off to look at other women." Hearing this, I could only offer a weak, nervous laugh. Rose raised an eyebrow, took my hand, and pulled me toward the exit. Behind us, Catherine had a firm grip on John. We exchanged a look of hopeless defeat and allowed ourselves to be led away. When we got home, I was still mourning the thousands of dollars we'd spent on cover charges, only to be dragged out after 2 minutes. Seeing my dejected expression, Rose frowned. "What's wrong? Missing the show?" I jumped. "What? No, of course not." "Good," she said with a sly smile. "Because I've decided to give you a little punishment, one that will make sure you don't have any time to think about other women." I felt a pang of guilt and opened my mouth to explain, but she silenced me with a kiss. That night, Rose took the lead, and by morning, my back was aching. A year later, she gave birth to our child. I leaned against the headboard, watching Rose cradle our baby, lulling him to sleep. A wave of warmth washed over me. "Honey," she said one day, "for the baby's 1-month celebration, I have a gift for you." I was about to refuse, but she handed me a contract. "This production company is now in her name," she said. "I've signed a lot of beautiful new starlets. You can look all you want, but you're not allowed to touch." "I love you so much," I exclaimed, pulling her into a passionate kiss. Rose just laughed and hugged me back. In that moment, I felt completely surrounded by happiness. Oh, and of course, I couldn't forget about my partner in crime, my dear father-in-law.